the best recruiters and the best recruitment agency owners need to be thinking about how do you become high tech, high touch.
Welcome to the Tech Savvy Recruiter, the podcast for recruitment and staffing agency owners keen to explore the tech innovations reshaping our industry. I'm Andrew Roger from RecMate.
And I'm Belinda Kerr from Recruitment Garage, and together we're your hosts bringing you a stellar lineup of tech experts ready to help you understand and, more importantly, benefit from the increasing array of tech available to you today. So today on the Tech Savvy Recruiter podcast, Andrew and I are delighted to welcome Sean Withford to the mic. Sean and I and Andrew have actually known each other for quite some time. And Sean started in recruitment, has certainly been around the recruitment industry. And more recently, he set up an agency called Eloquent, which is an amazing marketing agency. And Sean has a real focus on the EVP proposition, but also, is more broadly into marketing as well. I might let Sean introduce himself a little bit more just to round that out for you. But today we're going to be talking quite generally, really, because AI's come in and it's changing the way we're working, and it's obviously going to do that a whole lot more. So we're just looking at the bigger picture landscape to see, well, what does that really mean to people running businesses and sitting at a desk? And if we're going to get all this free time, what should we be doing with it? So we're just going to chat around that. I think you'll find it a really interesting conversation. Sean's always got wise words to say, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what we get up to today. So anything else, Sean, there that you'd like to add?
No, that sounds great. I am looking forward to it.
So let's kick off then. If you're a recruitment founder running an agency and you've been diving into AI and doing different things, and we've all had a taste of it, what should we be starting to think about now when we're running our weeks, running our agencies? What are the sorts of questions we should be asking ourselves to really maximize what's going on in relation to AI, tech, freeing up time, etc.?
It's such an interesting time, right, for anyone working in recruitment, for anyone working in HR, because we've got all these different questions. So there's what does it look like in 10 years? So which jobs are going to be influenced and replaced and changed, right? So we need to think about where we're recruiting and are those jobs still going to be there? And then we need to think about how we're recruiting and how are we doing things. I don't think there's any death knell for recruiters with AI. I just think it's different. It'll definitely change. I think that the best recruiters and the best recruitment agency owners need to be thinking about how do you become high tech, high touch, right? So you need to think about those two things. They're really important. So when it comes to high tech, you need to really be looking at your recruitment process and saying, where can I make things better? Where can I improve them? But the goal isn't automating out your recruiters, right? So you want to, it's automate the process, but amplify the personality, right? So you actually need to be leaning a lot more into how do we become more conspicuously human? I think that there's parts of the recruitment process. I used to spend so much time scheduling and rescheduling and calling people and leaving voice messages and getting back, and the client had come back to me 48 hours later saying yes to the time that the candidate had given me, but that time doesn't work anymore. Just the amount of BS spent on scheduling was wild, right? And that's something that I feel that it should be so solved right now. People's calendars should just be able to talk to each other and lock it in for us with no communication. I'm all for that for automation. I think that there was a lot of time screening. I don't trust tech to shortlist, but I do trust it to at least give me a potential ranking, right? So, and again, the amount of time that I used to spend. So I was look back at Hayes, right? So we had Adapt once upon a time going back 20 years ago. The amount of time that I spent, manually trawling through all of these different resumes and recoding things so that I could find them, and finding these little gems that hadn't been coded properly that no one else could find in there. So much time in all of that stuff, right? So AI is there's a huge opportunity to give us more time in those different areas. Also, I think that, that huge candidate frustration around like not knowing where a process at, again, like technology can make that happen a lot faster. But there's a flip side, right? So I was thinking before we came on, I was like, and just about like the humanity of recruiters, whether it was good or bad to the overall outcome, I was really, really good at making candidates really, really excited about a job, right? Like I was really good at this, I don't know, contagious enthusiasm about what that opportunity had for them and what it brought. And I was so good at like the emotion of this like transference of confidence for them. So whether that was good for the process, I don't know, but I was good at it. And like an AI notification can't do that, right? Like a notification that you're moving to the next stage can't give that level of confidence to a candidate about making a change. Not going to give they should realize this answer is really long, but it can't give clients that sense of confidence in a candidate as well, right? And there were these little human touches, right? So I remember calling clients after the interview and like, I just spoke with Jenny. She's so excited about this opportunity, right? Like and there were those little moments. If you try to automate them out, it's going to hurt your results
Yeah,
so much.
I agree.
So much. So that was a very long answer to your question, but AI is hard. It is changing things. There are some areas where we should really we should love it around scheduling and structuring. I think there are things we should be cautious around screening. Again, I don't it doesn't not like, I think one of my best hires at LinkedIn did not look good on paper at all. And he's still there 10 years on as a director. He hit club every year, and his background, there was no SaaS sales. There was nothing that would have said that he was going to be as successful as he was. So you just don't always, I don't trust it to do those sorts of things. And you need to be more conspicuously human, I feel too.
Yeah, and I think, you go, Andrew.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love you just picking up on a couple of things you were talking about there, Sean, around, listen, AI is not the big baddie that's going to kill all our recruitment jobs. It's definitely an enabler. And like you, I think it's still very early days for our industry to have 100% trust in what the machine says, but it's a great sifting tool, isn't it? It can do so much more quickly than any human can, and give you some data to then make a decision or to do the grunt work. You talked about screening, so maybe putting the candidate through a process to gather information, and then if they say this, then put them down this pathway, or then just do some AI ranking on their background profile, etc., etc. But ultimately, this is all freeing the human up to do what we're designed to do, which is to maybe surprise and delight our customers, being a candidate or a client, in those ways that you were just talking around, by adding enthusiasm to the process and spending time with people, right?
And like empathy and connection and nuance, and but right, like when you're spending time with a candidate, the tone of a yes can tell you a lot, right? There's a big difference. We were excited about that role, and a yes versus yes, right?
I just picked up on something there, Sean. Tell me more. Yeah.
There is a world of information that AI, well, at least right now, right? They said, nothing dates faster than a vision of the future. So we don't know. But what I do know is right now, it doesn't do that.
I think sentiment mapping still at its early stages, and there will be a stage where you answer a question and it will pick up on an inflection in your voice or a pause, or and that'll be based on data that it has from previous conversations or previous parts of the conversation, the speed at which you deliver that speech, all that kind of fun stuff there. It will be processing much quicker than a human can. But to your point today, I think it's still yet to be proven that it can do. And
there's different levels, aren't there, where it matters. So, for example, we had Ross Clennett. We had a great conversation with Ross, and he was using the example of McDonald's and how they were using Olivia to basically use a chatbot to go through their whole process. But if you're looking for somebody to, would you like fries with that, versus somebody to run a major bank, there's a lot of different things in that process. And I think starting it, and Ross made a really good point about these, is what did he call it? Is high volume recruitment dead, or is high volume recruitment toast? And the answer is yes. But then as you come further up and it becomes more complex, I think that moves more into the areas where we want to be using AI for things like you've said, like making our days faster, doing those initial screenings and things, but still very much retaining that element of consulting that, it's certainly in the short term, we're not going to see that level of what's the word? That level of insightfulness and value from AI. That's what I see in the market.
Yeah. And Andrew talked about AI and like being the big bad. So we're probably all old enough to remember, so I remember when online job boards were out to get everyone, because this was the end of it, because
print advertising was toast, and we were, or agency recruiters were dead because corporates would just put their ads on the internet.
Yeah. So I remember that. And then of course agency recruiters became the biggest users of job boards. And then I remember LinkedIn being the death of recruiters. And I was at LinkedIn. So I was one of the very first people in the talent solutions team. And I actually moved from the team working with corporates to the team working with agencies on purpose, because the agencies were using it more and better, right? I could see it in the data. It was growing faster. They were using
Sean, am I right that LinkedIn's mission in the beginning was to get rid of recruiters and replace recruiters? Was that not right? No, I'd heard. So that's like an urban myth, is it?
Never true.
Okay.
I think that if there was somewhere in a fundraising doc when they were the size of the recruitment industry represents X trillion or whatever, and in that they bundled up the number, but LinkedIn was actually created for a bunch of wealthy VCs to connect with each other to make funding once upon a time. And then it was more about replacing the business card so we could connect a little bit. And, it was for wealthy VCs rather than, losing your business card to stay connected and refer trusted people. And it kind of built around that. But yeah, it's definitely an urban myth of LinkedIn. Absolutely what you did have happening, and I was over in the recruitment agency side. What did frustrate me no end was the email that says, hey, we can save you X thousand in recruitment fees, because it was easy to quantify a number, and it was kind of very lazily successful, right, if you were selling to corporates, because it was a number that could point out where you're going to save them that money. But LinkedIn was always just about connecting people with opportunities. And internally, there was never that rhetoric. Certainly the occasional salespeople, they would send it to someone, and then their client would send it to the agency, and then they would send it to me really pissed off. You'd have to no, but it was hard. That time was hard. That narrative was hard. And now, of course, everyone's moved on and no one cares. And now the big bad can be AI instead, right? So it was job boards for a while, then it was LinkedIn. Now it's AI. And next it'll be something else. Robots.
Let me ask you a question about EVP, because I know you're really big on employee value proposition. And there's obviously a lot of ways that tech can support that, and tech can support our personal brands, our business brands, and that's obviously part of EVP too. So how do you see that evolving, and what part does tech have to play there?
Yeah. So I would say, as I think about it, there's two main places that we're seeing it and using it at the moment. Right. So the beginning of an employer brand, step one is actually knowing what your promise is, right? Why are we a good place to work? And so we do quantitative and qualitative research, and companies are doing quantitative and qualitative research. There's lots of big platforms out there that are doing pulse surveys and things. So that's tech stacks. In particular, though, there's smart platforms like CultureAmp, and because they're collecting all of this data, they've now got all of these predictive analytics, right? So they can say, hey, based on other tech sales teams in New South Wales of your size, when people have a net promoter score over this, you're going to get this churn next year, right? And they're pretty accurate, right? So you've got predictive analytics tools like that, which are really impressive. If we're talking about technology in that space. something that we're using a lot. So if a client's not using Coltrane's great, but it's not everyone has the enterprise budgets. And so we can be using things like Typeform, but then when tech comes in now is like our ability to do text analysis on free text answers is wildly different than it was 5 years ago, right? Like you can't imagine how hard it was 5 years ago to have a free text field and 1,000 people respond and then to create meaning from it. Right. And now like we've built our own AIs and models that can look at all of that free text information and then give it back in a structure that we want it to actually be able to create meaning. So yeah, technology is really good at helping you understand what's happening inside of your business, and AI is really useful at creating signal from the noise. Then the next part of it is once you know your promise, you need to go tell it. And obviously your people are your best storytellers. And I think like just the ease of video now, like, you know, we're all doing it now, right? Like 10 years ago, what we're doing together right now was virtually impossible. It's really hard to do at any level of quality. But now it's so easy to bring those stories of those people in your business to life and amplify them and to show them to the world and like share your humans.
What I love about that is a company with one person can do that just as well as a company with 10,000 people. It really levels the playing field, which I think is, because I'm passionate about small business, I love that.
I would argue that like the one person has an advantage over the 10,000, like even more so. So part of it's expectations, right? So if it's you, like you actually can get on your phone and talk and it's fine, but Microsoft can't, right? Because I've got an expectation of what they're allowed to do, right?
A few hoops to jump through there.
Yeah, right. So they like they do have to spend 6 figures on a campaign sometimes, right? But you don't, right? So I think that it is a really big equalizer or leveler. And then also if you just think about speed of adoption, we can talk about AI and like maybe the mindset that'll help people next, but an individual can adopt and adapt so much faster than an organization now. Right? It's essentially the bigger the organization, the longer the shift. And you know, because it's like steering an ocean tanker, right? Like it takes so long for them to move in any direction, whereas our advantage and curse as, you know, entrepreneurs and small businesses is, you know, you can be doing something new tomorrow. But yeah, so I think there's an advantage for small organizations.
Sean, I'd love to know, because you've come through recruitment, you've worked at LinkedIn, you've worked at Hayes, you've done a lot with recruiters, and now you're in marketing. So when it comes to what should recruitment founders be thinking about when it comes to marketing and tech now, or how and even maybe some ways that you're using it in your business? Just love to know. So away from sort of running the desk, but to actually that marketing piece, what should we be thinking about there?
Yeah. And funnily enough, actually, I studied marketing. I was working in a market, like in an ad agency. So I used to do ads for, Microsoft, MasterCard, Coca-Cola were all my like old clients. I worked on the launch of the original Xbox once upon a time. I worked on the launch of Vanilla Coke, but that wasn't my fault. I used to
come back though, hasn't it?
Yeah, I used to make paddle pop wine commercials, like those cartoons.
Amazing.
So yeah, like my background started there. I applied for a marketing role, and then I think I got convinced at Hayes that I'd make a wonderful recruiter instead. So that's how I like ended up, right? So I was marketing, then I was at Hayes. I was actually with Born Very Future Step in their IPO business in between there and LinkedIn. And then now, yeah, so I've almost sort of come back around full circle. Yeah. In terms of, so the question was like for recruitment agency owners and thinking about marketing, thinking about what's working. I'm going to answer 2 questions. So I think the first is just thinking about technology and particularly AI. I would encourage everyone to have the mindset of I think that the thing that will serve you best right now and into the future is being a curious tinker. Yeah. So if you're waiting for best practice, it's too late because things just move too fast. So there's not best practice. And by the time there is, then it's the moment's past as well. So rather, like, you need to be that kid who used to take apart radios and screw the back off and pull the bits out and then put them back in, like, and need to like think that way with how you do things and do little tweaks and tests and experiments, right? So, and most will fail, and that's okay, right? It doesn't have to be on mission, like I wonder if that tool can do this for us, and give it a try. Like, so you need to become a perpetual tinker. I think all of us do, because just the rate of change and technology is just so fast. Yeah, so waiting for education is not going to help. When it comes to marketing, right? So I would absolutely be looking at all of the amazing like marketing automation tech that like platforms have. Like I remember like the beginning of our business, right? We were marketing for recruiters, and of course every recruiter wants leads. And we were picking up a lot of that HubSpot inbound methodology, right? We're talking eight years ago now. But none of the ATSs or CRMs were set up for it, right? Like there wasn't lead scoring. So marketing platforms and those principles, which were great in theory, but it was really hard to hack together inside of an ATS or a CRM because it didn't work. But I think it does now, right? Like I think it's coming along so much faster, and you can do automation, and you can have triggers. So like I would be really leaning into that and testing it, because the things that I've seen that like when I've seen it work there, it works really well. But yeah, the challenge we always had as marketers is the marketing tech stack wasn't in the CRM where the recruiters spent their time, and we were treating recruitment consultant. SaaS companies had these rooms full of like sales development people, right? There's a room full of people job to call everyone that downloaded the white paper. Whereas, a room full of recruiters, if you're like someone's down the salary survey, like they're not going to call them, right? Like, they're going to call them. But now they might, right? And now actually, if your CRM is surfacing that they've opened something twice, or if a client's been on your website and looking at the clients tab, you should pick up the phone. So like you should set that up for your business. And I'm not great at it, but I think Andrew might be. So I would speak to Andrew about those sorts of things and explore those sorts of technologies, because there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah. That's always been a real tough one for me, because I'm working with so many small small businesses, founders, and you've almost got to have the two. So you got to have your CRM, and then you've got to have, Active Campaign or something like that. And you're kind of straddling these two systems. And I know, like you say, Sean, there's definitely moves to bring it across. And at one level, it works really well. From what I've seen, we're not at the point yet where if you want to do that in quite a sophisticated way, like these platforms are built for, these email marketing platforms are built for, we're not there yet. But given that a lot of people weren't using any of the functionality, I think it's a good step forward, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah. And I think that what I'm hoping that AI allows us to do not too far from now, as people are talking about agentic AI and things, it should be a really useful wizard for you to make the stuff work, right? Right. So actually what I think the world would love is if I'm in Bullhorn or Smart Recruiters or Job Adder or wherever I am, Loxo and all the different platforms. I would love to, I can't remember what's the name of that little clip guy that used to appear, but
the paperclip.
The paperclip, yeah. You want a paperclip that works, right? So, hey, I would
not annoying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you want to call it and say, hey, I would like to be able to set it up in my CRM or through the tags that I've got on my website, that when a client visits our website, that it creates a task for someone to call. And it's great, let's do that, right? So that's what we all want out of AI, right? It should let us maximize the things and do it in a natural language way. And I'm excited for that. And I think it'll come. Smart Recruiters, I don't know when we're publishing this, but so yesterday, Smart Recruiters had a webinar on the launch of Winston, which is their new AI. It's going to be doing a lot of those different things inside the platform, and it's interesting. It's interesting how it works, and I do think it empowers. I don't think it replaces, based on what I was seeing yesterday.
No, I mean, I have a vision similar to what you were just describing, Sean. Around you put a job in as a recruiter, and there's your AI buddy, whatever it's called, Winston or Bill or Mary, whatever it might be, who whispers to you, say, "Hey, Andrew, see you've just added a Java developer role or marketing manager role or whatever it might be." Usually, what you do next is A, B, and C. I've prepared that for you already. I've also searched the database for you. These are the top 5 that you should ring today. to cover off on this opportunity, whatever the steps are there. Okay, so
Yeah.
that'll be there as your little wing buddy to do some of that heavy lifting that is part of the role, but probably nobody gets delight in doing. And maybe they don't do it really well because you've met some recruiters that are really good searchers of the database. Others just drag kicking and screaming into the database saying, I should do a search, but I don't really know how to do it. And I'll just search my LinkedIn network or whatever it might be first, rather than looking in our own database where there's bound to be gold in there, right? So it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, if you think about the Venn diagram of people who love people and love databases, there's not a big overlap in that.
I think it's more like this than like this.
Yeah. It's like two magnets of opposing, pushing away from each other often, right?
Yeah. So something that lets people like be more people-y. Don't quote on that, but
that's a snippet.
Yeah. I think that would that's really where the opportunity is, and that's where I as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've raised that movie Her before, Belinda, where the AI agent is there, and it's just that wing buddies, and it says, "Hey, Andrew, don't forget you've got a meeting coming up at 10:30. I've prepared some notes from your last interaction with that person, yada yada yada, whatever the process is there." So I think that expectation of having the machine doing the machine stuff and the human doing the human stuff is going to be much more delimited between what roles are by who and who's better at doing them.
Yeah, and it's changing all the time, isn't it? I think to Sean's point, that's why it's so important that we're all just playing and tinkering a little bit.
Yes.
So that we don't try and plug in another 12 months down the track and kind of go, well, how do we go from here to here?
Plus also not putting all your eggs in one basket. We're recording, it's the 23rd of January, and TikTok's been switched off for the US.
Did they switch? I didn't think they were switching it off. I thought they changed their mind.
Back on. Is it back on?
It's back on. Yeah, it's back on now. But since I think president's come in, I think he switched it back on.
He's shaking it up.
He put the plug back in, but
but
there's definitely that case for tinkering and playing. But it's got to be so careful not to just waste so much time. I think you have to box that time when you're doing that so that you're not letting it spread into your day, because I see it all the time with my guys. It's
a distraction.
Really distracts them, and the focus that's so important to win the game of business just goes out the window. So it's this real balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to happen where will be built more fully into the operating system of the database you're using. That's definitely going to happen. Otherwise, if a recruitment system doesn't do that, companies will move to ones that do.
Well, see, that makes it more interesting. That makes it easier too, doesn't it? So we don't have to sort of think about how we're going to use this AI.
Well, at the moment, a lot of players, a lot of those small business owners that you interact with, BK, are the ones tinkering with 15 different bloody products, right? To get a system that can do some proactive marketing, put people in funnels, rank the responsiveness of those people, have that marketing score once they hit 75 of being engaged, send something else, or to alert me to pick up the phone and talk to Sean because he's just opened a white paper 3 times. That's not happening for a lot of those small business owners because you're using disparate systems.
And there's a lot of cobbling things together. And sure, you got
Zapier here, a Zapier there, and whereas you just want to put your job ad in and it does 15 things for you.
Yeah, interesting.
Right now it all looks like Frankenstein. There's things all stuck together with some sticky tape. Yeah.
Sean, what's the most, if you think about the last 12 months, what's the most exciting tech that you've seen pop up?
There's so
not to put you on the spot or anything.
There's so many different ones.
Okay.
What was first to mind just then? What was the first one that came to mind?
Well, but it's not recruitment related.
That's okay. Doesn't matter.
Okay. I've been learning Spanish, and there is a site called character.ai, and it emulates the voices of different people, and it emulates like a phone call with someone. Right. So once I got to a certain level, I have a phone call conversation with a Colombian celebrity because they get all of these people's voices, right? You get all of the footage of it, and then you can have a conversation,
cobble it together,
personality there, and it literally simulates a conversation, and it feels so real and natural, and it's getting better and faster, and so I can have a conversation to Andrew's the movie She, right? I can have a conversation with this person and and everything about it feels like a phone call. Like you literally dial them and they answer, and then you talk and they'll talk back. I've spent time having conversations in a different language as a way of improving my language, but it's a really low stakes environment, because if I make a mistake, it's not real.
Doesn't matter.
And it's cheaper than a tutor. Right?
But you forget that supermodel that you're talking to in Spain isn't really a real supermodel.
Well, look, it's a sense of, it's Carol G. Carol G. I have conversations with. I like her reggaeton music, but you don't forget. Right now there isn't a risk of me like falling in love with my Carol G. Bot, but like it's super interesting. And in fact, if I think about like a practical application of something that I did recently, and this is people's jobs being impacted, I guess. So when we were producing videos, we would go find like different stock footage and things. Right?
Yeah.
I found a tool, and we've actually got two like signed musicians that work for us, right? And that's not what they're doing here. It turns out that musicians these days have to be amazing marketers, because like Sony won't sign you until you've got 1 million followers, right? So they're doing all of this stuff and shooting videos, and as they've actually, those creatives are really good, and we're kind of leaning into hiring them. But right, so we used to spend hours and hours going through different clips to find the right thing for the background of that, or which of these corporate jingles best represents the tone of this brand. We can use different AI tools to custom create tracks that we own. But say I'm sitting there in front of a video, I can ask for an emotional crescendo at 42 seconds, and I can ask for this to come in, and the bit where someone's talking about a problem, I can make it sad, but then when they start talking about the solution, make it uplifting. In about 20 seconds, right? Like for as long as it takes me to write it, produce these, and if I don't like it, I can just press go again, and it'll make me a new one. Right?
Amazing. I came across that the other day. Actually, it's very cool.
Oh, shocking! Yeah, it was amazing. So. Yeah, that were my first thoughts. They're not strictly recruitment technology ones. Like I've seen cool ones, but yeah. So
I think with your example there about your language tutor, just I guess casting my mind back to some comments earlier along, you thinking, okay, well, we're still at the infancy stage of this stuff, right? And there is going to be a big, differential between a human doing the thing or the bot doing the thing. But I think that gap is just going to diminish and disappear at such a rapid rate of knots that I think you've got to be on this journey and be that tinkerer as you described, so that when that happens, you've got the opportunity to say, hey, yeah, this makes sense for our business.
Yeah,
we want to put this in at that stage because it's more efficient for the customer. They maybe feel less challenged, less exposed, answering some questions because it's a bot rather than a human. Maybe they feel a bit embarrassed. If they don't know the answer to something, maybe they'll feel more comfortable in saying, I don't know. Yeah. To your point, if you're not afraid of making a mistake, then maybe you've got to be a bit more open and honest in that.
And
whole
also,
discussion.
a lot of these things that start off with one purpose will end up with another. We've seen that time and time with innovation over the years, haven't we? So, what might be a Spanish program now may develop into something that's amazing for recruitment. Like, okay, I'm taking a reference from somebody in a different language. Like, can I don't know how that would directly translate, but these sorts of things can start to shape out in different ways, which is it's really exciting.
Well, that tool I was just talking about wasn't for language learners. It was for people who want to talk with celebrities. Like it's mostly teenage girls on there talking to Taylor Swift, right? But I was like, oh, like if I
can hack it to do this.
If I pick someone that I know that speaks a different language, like I'm there, right? Like that's so I used that tool in a different way than intended for me and my needs. And like even as we were talking then, like so Andrew, as you started talking about it, an opportunity for someone listening to steal is that technology that we just spoke about of having that, like, why not? And like someone, an app that helps you do your interview preparation, because you could absolutely tell something, about your background and your career and experience and start having an interview with it right now about different roles and have a phone conversation that feels really natural, and it can ask you questions and you can respond, and afterwards it can give you feedback. So
it's really interesting. And I was speaking with Justin Hillier from Recruiter Insider yesterday, and they've just released a module. Actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but anyway, I will. That can process client feedback about candidates, and over time build a profile around what that particular client contact likes to hear, see in an interview process. So then it can give some proactive tips saying, usually Sean likes to hear about A, B, and C, or this is how you should, oftentimes Sean will ask these questions. So think about preparing for those. Maybe not giving them the answers, but maybe doing that diagnosis around what's happened is probably going to happen again in the future, because us humans are pretty comfortable with repeating what we've done before. And then, give you some insight and perhaps how you should frame some answers.
Yeah, I think and I think we will see a wave of, let's probably call it ethical AI.
Yeah.
Right? So there will be particularly if we're thinking about hiring and, assessing resumes, responses, those sorts of things. There will be a language model or an LLM or whatever it is. There will be a specific AI that is certified, right?
Yes.
And it's okay for your business to use because it doesn't hold biases, or maybe because it does, right? If you're looking for something, I don't know. But yeah, it will be very interesting. But yeah, there will be ethical AI platforms, and people will say we use this, not that, to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Sean and Andrew, actually, because I know both of you are really techie, have a techie bent. Are there places that you'd recommend our listeners go to kind of, without being overwhelmed, but just updated about this stuff? Are there platforms or podcasts, or I don't know, I get a couple of newsletters, I wish I could remember what they were called, that I find, where I'm at with AI, it's good. It just kind of lets me know certain things that are happening. Is there anything that you guys recommend?
I don't think there's a single source of truth, to be honest. I think it's one of those things that Sean talked about before. You've got to be curious, and I know it would be great to have a hub, right, which then feeds in. I mean, there might be one out there that listeners can let us know about.
I just get a couple of newsletters that I find helpful. They'll sort of go out and aggregate what's the main conversations are for the week. And I find those really useful. But I was just curious.
Who's that with, BK?
I wish I knew.
Okay.
Because
we'll put it in the show notes.
I'll dig it out and I'll put it in the show notes. It'll point to other points of information as well. So I don't know if it's at the sort of the level that we're sort of hoping that something. Start that again. I'm not quite sure it has the depth of information we're talking about, but it's definitely interesting, and they obviously spend time going out and collating stuff they think is interesting to people. So yeah, sure, I'll put in the notes.
Yeah, perfect.
There'll be more and more of that coming up all the time, won't there? We'll be bombarded with it. Sean, what do you reckon? What's your predictions for this year around tech, AI, recruitment? What do you think is going to be the shifts?
Look, we're probably all, I could be wrong, we're probably all overestimating how much will change this year. Yeah, so I think that we will see smarter applications of AI wizards inside of tech platforms. And hopefully at this point, what we will see from AI is it helps us do things a little bit easier or faster. Right. So I think that's probably my prediction for this year, which is very underwhelming. I don't have any doom and gloom one. There will be lots of intelligent chatbots on websites, and that's happening really quickly. So if I look at what's happening in e-commerce, for example, right? So there are AI chatbots that can talk to Shopify. And then when someone comes to the site to ask a question about their thing, it can go consult and see about that order and where it is and when it was shipped and where it went. So it can do those things immediately, right? And so I think that we will be seeing recruitment equivalents of those. So for a candidate saying,
So do you think some of it might be taking what's already out there but not in the recruitment world and then bringing that in for applications for recruitment?
Well, that's what I do. That's how where innovation comes from, right?
Yeah, 100%.
What's working well in other places and say, where does it work here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be shocked if that doesn't exist already.
Yeah, cool.
because I mean, e-commerce, retail, and traditional SaaS type businesses have got much broader and deeper pockets for target and R&D.
Well, they've got big pockets, and everything happens online for a lot of them. And so if everything happens online or on their website, they get really good at that stuff. So that'll,
cool.
I expect that stuff coming over. But for me, it's this year. Hopefully AI makes things a little bit easier and a little bit faster. I think you can expect AI to be stack ranking your emails a little bit more. Personally, I'm using Loom and video tools to respond to things a lot more now. I don't know about you. Like, I used to agonize over emails for half an hour, like rewriting my words, and I don't know, did it have too many exclamation marks? Honestly, I would do these things, and now I just whereas if I pull out Loom, then it's solved in 2 minutes.
I love Loom. I love Loom. And for an application for me, like with the training, with working with the guys in the program, it's so good. Like, someone will send me something, say, BK, can you review this? I'm like, yep, where's Loom? And just screenshot it, go through it. It's so much easier than here's the email, here's the screenshots. So cool.
It's come along such a quick, fast-paced leaps and bounds with their AI modules in there where you can edit the words and it takes out the video. Where you delete a segment or change something in there, it's changed it in the video itself. It's just fantastic.
Actually, because I think a lot of the time when we think about video, we think about external marketing, but it can be so powerful in your own business, like your SOPs, all that kind of stuff. Coaching, it's really useful.
Defining a process is big. I mean, just
defining process.
Use that sort of camcorder method of, say, this is what I do, and then can one of your offsiders do an SOP for it, or chuck it into ChatGPT and it'll draft an SOP from the translation of that video. Right.
And one of the things I've learned, just as a kind of a side note, is we just keep all these things short now. You don't want to spend weeks creating SOPs because the next week they're outdated. It's just lots of short, quick things, and sort of having that main concept, and then the planets out the side. Oh, well, here's a quick video on this. Oh no, we're changing that. We're doing this. Delete that video. That's
Loom does the SOP now for you. You've probably seen that feature.
Who does?
It's Loom.
Loom does.
Yeah, it's got an SOP feature now. So
I didn't know that. See, it's going so fast.
It's nuts.
I'll check it out though.
Have a play.
That's interesting. So Sean, it's been a lovely conversation. I really was looking, because I know you've always got really interesting insights into things. I always love talking with you. Yeah. Any sort of parting words, or would you like to be set free?
No. So I'm just trying to make them sound good now. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on me.
So much pressure.
Automate the process, amplify the humanity.
I love that.
Yeah, that should be the goal of all of this stuff. I want the process to feel faster and easier so that I can amplify the humanity more. Right.
When you said that at the beginning, it resonated with me so much so that's what we're going to call this episode.
Yeah. It's very, very eloquent of you, Sean.
I see what you did there.
Ba-boom cha-cha. Yeah.
Speaking of which, tell us more about Eloquent, because some of our listeners may not know you or the business, and it's your time to do your little elevator pitch.
Evolved over the years. So I would call us there's two parts of the business. So there's Eloquent's a marketing agency, and we started out very much marketing for recruiters 8 years ago. I would now call us a B2B strategy and content agency. Because we still do work with a lot of people in the recruitment space and a lot of people in the talent and technology talent space as well. But also there's accounting firms and law firms and SaaS companies and a whole range of different types of businesses there. We used to do a lot of written content. Now it's a lot of video content because ChatGPT and AI changed everything. No one's really interested in paying for blogs anymore. Right? So the business changed a lot in the last 18 months. And so there's that. And then we also have, it's actually a separate brand now. It's The People, and it's The People as an employer brand consultancy. And so we help businesses understand and define their promise and then amplify that promise. Right? And so it's employee consultation, and it's turning it into a brand architecture, but then it's capturing all of those internal stories and bringing them to life, and a lot of videos, a lot of LinkedIn ads. So that's us. We're sort of in those two spaces.
Amazing. What's the best way people get in touch? LinkedIn, or what's the...
Thank you for the opportunity. You can find me on LinkedIn, Sean Withford, Withford, or you can email me, just Sean, SEAN, at eloquent, eloquent.com.au.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for sharing your words of wisdom. As I said, always lovely to chat, Sean, and wishing you a wonderful year ahead. And hopefully we'll see you back here at some point as well.
You as well. I'd love to. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
been so much
I'd love
fun.
to be out with you guys.
See you, Sean.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Tech Savvy Recruiter. If you'd like to stay up to date with the latest recruitment trends and insights, make sure that you remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And also, if you'd like to speak to Andrew about turning your tech stack into your secret weapon, or myself around creating an agency that delivers you more money, more meaning, and more freedom, we'd absolutely love to chat. Reach out to us on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support. We look forward to seeing you next time.